never done this.
There's a reason why the curse of sin is broken.
Good morning. I'm Keith Oath, the Area Director of Posey County Young Life and the team leader for our Committee Dream Team. Welcome, Raceway Region, to our first ever webcast training day. Our committee Dream Team has been dreaming about this day for about a year now. And so, Marlon, we finally made it. I would like to thank our Dream Team that's made up of Katie Kennard, Rhiannon, and Jordan Brantham, Jamie McCord, and they were so instrumental in helping us get this day to where we are right now and make it possible. We will have, for the folks that are here live across our region, which is Evansville, Henderson, Newburgh, and Posey County committee members here live, we will have a wireless mic that if you have any questions at any time, just raise your hand and we'll come over, and everyone should be able to ask their questions and be heard in South Africa if they wish to tune in. So this is being broadcast everywhere. Also, at the bottom of the screen, we will have a little ticker going across with a cell phone number for people in the Raceway region. Should they have a question, they can just text their question to that cell phone number, and we will read that to Moose as well, and your questions will be answered as we go. Also, for folks here in our area and all across the Raceway region, I know that Saturdays are precious days, so we say thank you to all of you folks that have joined us today via webcast or here live. I know every committee member from every area was not able to be there, so don't worry about that. This will be archived, so at any time you can use this as a training tool. I think you'll be able to fast forward to particular parts that Moose will be talking about, and as new committee members come on your committees as you guys go forward. A couple of thank yous. I would also like to thank City Church for allowing us to have this venue today to stream to you guys. Also a huge shout out to Jordan Fisher that's running our production back there in the back, and I'm not sure that we would have been able to do this without you, so thank you so much for being here. And with that, I want you all to please welcome Moose Valers, and he is going to be our presenter today, and so welcome and thank you for coming.
Test. Hey, all right, it works. Moose Valliere, the most mispronounced last name in the history of last names. Thank you, Keith. It is great to be here. Welcome, Saturday morning. I stayed in the Casa Finale. I told you guys, some of you that already. If you've never done, this is my little plug, bed and breakfast, correct? If you've never done it, do it. Pretty awesome place last night with a lot of great history. So anyway, that was awesome. I got a couple brochures. My wife would have been great. She would have loved it if she could be here. Sometimes she travels with me. Unfortunately, she didn't on this one. So anyway, welcome. By way of introduction, I wanted to give you a little bit of my background so you know who I am. And to do that, it starts in 1986. And that was the year I was a sophomore in high school in Oakton, Virginia. That's where I'm from. And I've been invited to go to this thing called Young Life a few times, and I had heard that Young Life was a cult. So I, of course, didn't go. Even though I didn't know what a cult was, I decided I wasn't going to go because that sounds bad. So I ended up not going for half the year, and then at one particular week, it was going to be at Joe Gibbs's house. So that name doesn't probably mean anything to people here in Indiana. But in Washington, D.C., Joe Gibbs is a legendary Hall of Fame three-time Super Bowl winning NFL coach. And his oldest son, J.D., was my best friend. So if they were going to have Young Life at Coach Gibbs at J.D.'s house, then obviously Young Life must be okay, because they're not going to have a cult at his house. So I show up wearing a nice sweater, thinking it's a religious event, so I'm supposed to go. I was not a religious kid. I didn't really ever go to church. I was kind of the captain of the varsity pagan team for my high school. And so we show up, and me and a buddy are at that first club, and we get in there, and Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs are sitting on the couch. And I'm really nervous, right? And so I say to Coach, I say, hey, I'm really nervous about being here. I've never, I don't own a Bible. They're not going to make me pray. What is this all about? And he is so funny. He's like, Moose, what are you talking about? You're going to have the greatest night of your life, or I will get rid of Young Life. So, the pressure's kind of on, to go and have a great time. So, and I was nervous, but to calm me down, he let me wear his Super Bowl 17 ring, which was really cool. And we didn't have cell phones back then, or I would have had the whole, selfie thing going on, and I could prove it to you, but I did wear it. And so I go downstairs, and about 120 kids show up that week. Of course, we always had big Young Life clubs when it was at JD's house. And then about halfway through, the Young Life leader gets up front, and he says, okay, we have 2 volunteers. And I'm thinking, oh man, what suckers would volunteer to get up in front of 120 people? Let's bring up Moose and his friend Gary. So, okay, I didn't volunteer, but you just called me out. So we go up there, and they pull out this 6-foot clear plastic hollow tube and a funnel. And I'm thinking, all right, I know what this is for. Did not know that you did beer bongs at Young Life Club. If I'd have known that, I'd have been going since my freshman year. Unfortunately, it wasn't for beer bongs that night. They would crack an egg, put the egg in the tube, and then Gary would be on one end, I'd be on the other. And we did a hilarious game, back and forth. We blew the egg back and forth on each other. And I had the time of my life. Then the Young Life leader gets up front, and he starts at the end. And then we sang a few songs, and that was cool. People were totally into it. I thought, wow, they threw songbooks out beforehand. I thought this is going to be corny. But it wasn't. It was really fun. And they did a couple of skits, and that was hilarious. And I was blown away at this point. And then the Young Life leader gets up front, and he pulls out his Bible. And I'm thinking, oh, dear Lord, he has no idea who's in this room. And off he goes, and he just starts sharing about Jesus and about having a relationship with Jesus. And he talks about Jesus in a language that I had never heard before. So I was sitting there, he had me. And as it went by, nobody mocked him, nobody said anything. And I just remember thinking, wow, how awesome is this? So I went home that night. My parents were wondering how it went. I walk in, my mom, I can only imagine how I sounded because I said something like this, hey, Mom, Dad, it was awesome. They had these beer bong things, and we did some skits, and we sang a lot, and then some guy talked about Jesus, and okay, good night. And I went upstairs, and I couldn't think about anything else other than what had just happened to me that night. And so next week was at a different house, but I was like, I got to go back. I got to see what that was. That was really fun, and all my friends were there. And every week I kept going until eventually my early junior year, I decided, you know what, I've heard everything I need to hear, and Lord, I want you in my life. Whatever it is, I didn't know a lot at that point in time. I just knew I needed a relationship with him. I need to have my sins forgiven and washed away. And so I prayed for the Lord to come into my life, and that was my junior year, and I have not been the same since. Went to Campaigners that next week, which is, you know, what Campaigners is, our little Bible study and vision casting to how to reach our friends at school, at our high school. Went to that the next day. There was probably 60 kids at that, and they were cheering me on when they found out what I had done the week before. And that was my introduction into God's family, really. And so what an introduction. And, you know, even to this day, I'm in touch with my friends from high school, all my Young Life friends. We vacation together. We just do life together. And about 6 of us live in the same neighborhood in Ashburn, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. And so we're doing life together now, too. So all of that just because Rick Beckwith, my Young Life leader, went into the 4-way intersection at Oakton High School and spent time with a snotty, sophomore, stuck-up kid who loved himself, Moose, and invested his life in me. When he would come to the school, he wouldn't talk about himself. He would talk about my favorite subject, me. And that had a huge impact on me. And so after that, I went off to Liberty University, which is in Virginia, and then transferred from Liberty back to George Mason University in Fairfax so I could get involved in Young Life. Went on, was a volunteer leader for Young Life, then went on staff with Young Life in Fairfax, Virginia, started a new area in Boston, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and then left there and started a new area in Lake Norman, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte. And then I left Young Life staff 2004. I went back to Virginia, got my real estate license. I own a real estate company now. And about 8 years ago now, when my oldest son was he's a sophomore now, so if I reverse that back to when he was going into 6th grade, whatever years that is, our area director called me and said, would you like to be my committee chair? And I said, really, I just want to be a wildlife leader, because my son was going to be in middle school, and I love, being a leader. But he goes, I really need you as my committee chair, and I really probably wasn't going to do both, so I said, okay, I'll be your committee chair. And so some of what you'll see today, and not some, all of what you'll see today stemmed from the first 12 months of my being a committee chair on a dying committee where we had 3 adults that all wanted to get off the committee. The area director didn't like committee meetings because there was just no joy, no anything there for him, and no life-giving element at all to him. And so that's what I was taking over. So in the first year, we went from that to about 22 adults, and then the rest was history. So a lot of that. So I say all of that to start it off just to say thank you for what you're doing. You're all in a different place, I'm sure, at some point in your committee life. Some of you are new, some of you have been around for a while, some of you have gone through area directors, some of you have gone through committee chairs. But wherever you're at, thank you, because what you're doing matters more than you could imagine. Your gifts, your talents, your time, what God has done in your life, even just a little widow's mite of that, is having a ripple effect on the landscape of heaven. So I hope that today you're not just here going, man, all right, teach me something about Committee Moose. I hope you realize you're really the ambassador for the area of land that God has given you, and that your role is as important, if not more important, than even some of your volunteer leaders, because you're the mouthpiece that gets that area, that keeps that area afloat. You're the person that helps raise the money to keep your staff person paid so that they can continue to work out their gifts and talents with the kids in their area and the schools in their area and the staff and everybody else, the leaders that they need to recruit and build. So thank you, and I want to pray for you, and then we'll start, okay? Heavenly Father, we love you so much, not certainly because we deserve it, but you love us, Lord, and we're thankful. We're thankful that you found us wherever we were, Lord. We didn't love you first. You loved us first. You found us. Lord, the Bible says we hated you, but you loved us, you pursued us. And so I thank you that you changed our eternity forever by giving us a new life. Lord, we could never, ever repay you, but what we can do, Lord, is give our lives away, Lord. And so we thank you for the ability, the gifts that you give us, the talents that you give us. Thank you for the life story that you're giving us, even if it's been difficult, Lord, it's still a mess that can become a message. So I thank you for that, Lord. I know you're going to bless so many kids, so many leaders and staff because of our mess that has become our message. So we pray, Lord, for that. And we thank you, God, for all the kids who are meeting Jesus and the kids that will meet Jesus, the kids that will thank us in heaven someday for our time serving here. There's nothing more important than helping somebody hear about Jesus Christ. So, Lord, we thank you for that. Pray now, Lord, that there would be a nugget or two that we could get from today along this journey to help us reach more and more kids for Jesus. And so we do ask you this all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, let me encourage you here in case some of you sleep in tomorrow and don't go to church. We're going to just share a passage of Scripture here that I hope will encourage you, because I think this is part of Committee 101, so we're really going to get right down to the basics of who we are and what we're all about. And to start with that, I want to at least go over what I believe the Scripture, the model that Jesus gives us in the Scriptures, that the model that Jesus himself gives us. So Matthew 9:35 through 38. says this. It says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he, Jesus, saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. All right. The first thing I want to point out to you is the most obvious, and that's the first two words. And this is where Young Life gets its Young Life gets its model from. Jesus went. One of my favorite parts of Young Life is our staff, our leaders, don't sit around waiting for kids to come to them. They go. And they go often. And it's not once a year, it's often. And, nowadays you can't just go into the high school or the middle. You have to figure out another creative way to do it. I'll give you one quick creative way our staff person did. At lunchtime, he went in to talk to the principal and said to the principal, hey, do you need anybody to help pick up trash during lunch? And the principal was like, yeah, that would be great. You could help. And they had built a relationship a little bit because he'd seen the principal at some football games and he realized who he was. And so the principal said, sure. So Robbie Rubio, our staff person, every Monday and Wednesday goes into our high school at lunch for all 3 lunches and pushes a trash can around and picks up trash. And the principal, was like, gosh, you seem to know everyone. And he does. But you think of that kind of contact work, pretty awesome. But it's just creative. It's a creative way to go. And that's what our staff does the best at, is they figure out a way to go. Why? Because it was modeled to us that Jesus went. Jesus left heaven, came to earth. Jesus went through all the towns and villages. And I love that. He went through all the towns and villages. I know the heart of your area, the heart of your staff person for sure, is that whatever high school is in the area that God gave us, our Young Life area, we want to eventually be in. Not just one, we want to be in all of them. Why? Because Jesus modeled that he went to all the towns and villages. And he taught in their synagogues, and he proclaimed the good news of the kingdom and healed every disease and sickness. And it'd be one thing if we just went and built relationships, but ultimately our goal is to proclaim the good news of the kingdom, to proclaim to the kids who are dying every day that there is hope. Hope is on the way, that no matter how crappy or stinky or poopy or whatever word you want to say your life is or is becoming, that there is hope for you. There's hope that at some point in our life, we'll take our last breath, and then like that, we'll be before the Lord with our heavenly robes on, with our heavenly body, perfect body, imagine being in a place where there's no sin. I mean, just think of the sin that's running through your mind even this morning. Think of the selfishness that runs through our hearts and our minds every day, every morning, every minute. Imagine that being gone. Isn't that hopeful? And that's all of eternity. And that's the hope that we give kids. We're not talking about our fantasy football teams, or we may talk a little bit about silly things like that, or what shows are on, or this or that, but it's really to set up an opportunity to proclaim the good news. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. And if you look, it says compassion is a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another who is stricken by misfortune, accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. A feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another stricken by misfortune, accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. So it says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion. He had a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for them, but he also had a strong desire to alleviate their suffering. How did Jesus alleviate our suffering? He died on a cross. He paid the penalty. He paid the penalty that we owed. The righteous requirement of perfection, which we couldn't attain, he did by dying on the cross for our past, present, and future sins, so that if we put our faith in him, by faith, he would cleanse us, so that when God looks upon us someday, he will see the righteousness of his dear son, not the sins that we have to pay for. That's alleviating the suffering. And so in Young Life, that's what our leaders do. We go, we try to, it'd be one thing to look at that school and go, look at all those poor kids that are struggling with partying or abuse or whatever they're struggling with. That'd be be noble of us to at least recognize, oh shoot, I feel bad for them. But if it ended there, so what? Where it really means something is, do we have a strong desire to go help them, to alleviate their suffering? And that in Young Life is what I think Young Life is the best in ministry at, is going to where the hurting people are and helping to alleviate their suffering. And you guys, you free your staff and your leaders up to do it better than anyone. So this a little bit is preaching to the choir. Okay, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. The harvest is plentiful. Lots of schools, lots of kids. Workers are few. We don't have as many volunteers as we need. Isn't that the truth? What if God said, I'm going to give you 100 volunteers today. Go ahead, take them back to your area, 100 volunteers. Would you know what to do with them? It'd be awesome, wouldn't it? The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Not the well-intentioned, not those with good thoughts, the workers, the ones that are going to work. This has nothing to do with work salvation. Okay, it has everything to do with taking your gifts that God gave you and working and getting it done. And you guys are the best at it. Ask the Lord of the harvest. This is where it gets easy. This is where he takes the pressure off. Ask the Lord of the harvest, pray, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And I feel like in Young Life, we have some of the strongest prayer warriors across the mission. And when I travel this country, I meet them, depending on how long I have to hang out afterwards. At some point, I'll meet the prayer warriors because they'll come up to me and we'll talk. And I'm telling you, we're in good hands. In fact, Young Life started because of a bunch of praying women. If you don't know the history of that, I won't take time to tell you, but it started from prayer. And your areas probably started from prayer. And so determining what the strongholds are in your area can only be defeated by prayer. This kind can only be driven out by prayer, Jesus said, when he sent them out 2 by 2 and they came back. And the power of prayer is enormous. And so, of course, it is, because Jesus said, ask the Lord of the harvest. Ask me. I'm in charge of all this. I'm the Lord of this harvest to send out. Ask him to send out workers. So at the very least, we always ought to be praying that God would raise up workers. Every meeting, every committee meeting, Lord, raise up workers. Otherwise, we're going to have to do it all ourselves. We'll get burnt out. We just don't have enough people. So Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. That's an Ice Mountain commercial. Sorry about that. Okay, awesome. Praise the Lord, huh? Pray. That's the easy one. That's the easy one. Okay, so the flow of today is going to be kind of easy, and stop me when there's questions. I don't know who am I looking at for that? Someone, if you have one. No, I'm saying if you have an online one. Okay, good. So I'll just reiterate what Keith said, is if you have questions, there's plenty of dumb questions, but ask them anyway. I have dumb answers too, and I'll make some up to make myself look good if I have to, but no, if you have questions, make sure you ask them, get them out. This is your opportunity to have someone like me coming to town. I'd love to come once a year if you invite me. But, it's an opportunity to have somebody that can help answer questions. Your staff person probably knows a lot of these answers as well. So there's resources for you from even after today. But if you have a question, please ask it. And we'll stop in the middle of whatever we're doing, and we'll do our best to answer it. Okay. What I want to focus on as part of 101 is communication. As committee people, we are the chief advertising agency in our area, meaning it's by our word of mouth that Young Life grows at the adult level in our area. And a lot of times, I think what you find is we're, Young Life CIA representatives, where we keep it all a secret, we don't say a word, not because you don't want to, but because we don't feel equipped. And so today is going to be kind of our first practice session on becoming a little bit more equipped by understanding the language, understanding the definition of committee and who we are and what we're good at. And what we call that is, what is our core competency? And really that's just fancy speak for what are we good at that we don't get enough credit for? That's our core competency. What are we good at that we don't get enough credit for? So if you're thinking of, let's say in the world you have Geico. Geico sells what? Insurance, okay? Now, what do you know about Geico? What can you get in how quick a time? Anybody know? 15% off, and how many minutes does that take to get 15% off? 15 minutes or less. Now, I don't know, I have no idea if that's a good deal or not. I just know that you get 15% off of something, and it's only going to take you 15 minutes or less. And to drive that point home, they trot what across the screen? What little character? Cute little gecko with his little Australian accent. Right, is it Australian? Or it's an accent. And it's fun. Jersey, North Jersey? No. And that's how they do it. And what they're doing right there is they're telling you, here's what we're great at that we haven't been getting enough credit for. So Geico's doing fantastic. All right, so for ministry, Young Life ministry, what is it? For Young Life, what is our core competency? Here they are. Number one, Young Life is the best ministry in the world at reaching unchurched or disinterested kids for Jesus Christ. True or false? That's true. Okay. I'm biased because I was that unchurched, disinterested kid. And somehow, some way, Young Life figured out a way. God used Young Life to figure out a way to find me. And he didn't use anybody else to do that, but he did use Young Life. And he used Young Life for a lot of my friends who were in the same boat I was. Okay? So that is true. Now, how do we communicate that? How do we communicate that in our area? So this, you probably wouldn't say, maybe at a banquet, or if you met a parent at a club meeting or a wildlife meeting, you probably wouldn't say, hey, let me educate you on who we, the committee, are, or Young Life is all about. Young Life's the best ministry in the world at reaching unchurched, that's your kid, and disinterested, that's your kid too, probably you too, for Jesus Christ. Now, obviously, we wouldn't say that, right? We would never say that. We're not that stupid. Okay, but how would we say it? How would we communicate who we are, what we do? What would you say to a parent when they ask that great theological question, what is Young Life? Now, I was on an elevator in Annapolis at a committee training, and there were two events going on. Me and another gentleman were on the top floor elevator getting on with our name tags that said Young Life, and another guy got on who did not have a name tag that said Young Life, and he raised that question, what is Young Life? And, I'm the committee trainer, and I'm getting ready to, do my seminar down in Annapolis. And the other guy was, ready, aim, fire. And he spoke up before me, which was awesome, so I didn't have to. And then he totally blew it. It was the hardest trip down the elevator. Oh, man, it's like a youth group. No, it's not. Yeah, and there are a bunch of Christian kids. There are some, but we're looking for the lost kids. Yeah. And on he went, and it was like the opposite of what I was going to share, or what I would have said. And I don't even say I have the right answers, because mine changes every time I'm with somebody, depending on who I'm with. If the person knows the Lord, then I share what Young Life is in a different way than someone who doesn't go to church, like my parents would. I would probably speak to my parents totally different. How would you? Do you practice it? Do you practice it as a committee? Do you ever take time in a committee meeting to go over, hey guys, how are we doing communicating to people? Has anybody had any questions or any instances where you felt stuck or in a jam? Do you go over our core competencies? Well, you probably don't at this point, but this is yours to take. We do in our committee, we go over these. I mean, if you came to my committee and asked anybody on our committee, they could walk through Young Life's core competencies in a language that you would understand, not they make it personal to the person they're talking to. Young Life's the best ministry in the world at reaching unchurched or disinterested kids. Any questions on that one? Okay. Pause for those at home. Okay, number 2. Here's a fun one. Young Life delivers 5-star camping experiences to give kids the best week of their life or their money back. True or false? Any of you ever been to a Young Life camp? Anybody in here been to a Young Life camp? Okay, there you go. Fun? The best. I mean, you're like, wow, I get to do that too? I don't know if I'm assuming they do this at every camp, so I hope I'm not giving anything away, but on the East Coast camps, they do a obstacle course night 1. They do that at all the camps around here? Okay, good. Obstacle course night. You know what the adult guests get to do on night 1 if they're not doing the obstacle course themselves, they get to throw water balloons at kids or squirt them with soaker, whatever those things are called, at the end of the obstacle course. It's part of, getting them cleaned off a little bit, but so they don't bring all that mud back to their cabin. But, we make sure that those balloons are as ice cold as you can get them. And you hit the kids, you feel like, man, they really need to get hit by a water balloon. Right there, night 1, the tough kid that thinks this is Camp Winnie the Pooh that they just showed up to. You aim for the head for that guy. Let him know. Let him know what's getting ready to go down. And it is going down for real. So, but that's it. So you go now. But what do we do with these Young Life? First of all, there's no teepees or tents or anything like that, man. These are 5-star accommodations, especially for adult guests. By the way, if you're ever an adult guest host, you get to go for free. Just in case you didn't know that. You want a free vacation? Become an adult guest host. Take your area's committee to a camp for a couple of days. But the food is fantastic. I mean, literally, dessert every meal except for breakfast. I mean, come on. Food is fantastic. The activities are great. I think pretty much they all have ropes course or some sort of ropes course or climbing wall and zip lines and all sorts of different things that you can do that are fun, that are awesome. And the best part about the camping, and here's the special sauce. If you've ever sent your son or daughter away to like a sport camp or something like that, you send them away to Kanakuk or something, you send them off. Usually it's more expensive than a Young Life camp. And usually you're sending them away to someone you're not really sure who their leader is. Young Life, we send kids with the leader that has built a relationship with them all year long. So the comfort level is right from the beginning is there. And that's where we're sending the kids. So and by the way, they're going on school buses or anything. They're going on, I mean, most of them, unless you're really, really close to a camp, we're getting those nice coach buses with bathrooms in the back, and you never want to sit back there because somebody always thinks they have to do, that in the bathroom on a 10-hour trip, and so it kind of contaminates the back of the bus. But still, you have the option because it's a beautiful bus. And so it's just, I'm telling you, the camping experience that Young Life provides is 5-star. And by the way, you all get to go. And so how do we communicate this to the people in our areas that don't know what Young Life is? Very simple. We tell them what I just said, how great Young Life. And by the way, if you don't believe me, they have an adult camping program, an adult guest program, and you're able to go too. And it's actually way cheaper to go as an adult guest. Even if you have to pay, it's like $50 to $4 per night per person. So it's way cheaper to do that than to go as a kid. They pay a lot more money because they're paying for the bus and all that too. But phenomenal experience. And by the way, in all my years in Young Life, we would say, and maybe Keith, you guys still do this, or your money back, best week of your life, or your money back. I mean, we used to say it mainly it was just as a joke because no one ever took us up on it. There was a couple kids we would have gladly given their money back and sent them home early. But for the most part, but never had to do it. Never had to do it because it was the greatest week of their life. And you know what? Even as a leader, as hard as it is, it's the greatest week of my life too when I would go. Couldn't wait to get home, but for what I was able to watch God do in the life of kids, man, that's awesome. And you get to see that too. And you get to be invited to do something like that as well. Local parent of a kid in your area. If you ever want to, let me know and I'll give you more information. But that's what you send your kids off to. And they love it, and you can too. Young Life delivers 5-star camping to give kids the best week of their life or their money back. How are we doing? Okay. Number 3, Young Life is the best at reaching every kid in every culture in every country. That's true. Did you know Young Life, and correct me, staff, if I'm wrong, I'm sure they'll announce this at the 2020 staff conference, But as of, I don't know, 6 months ago, I believe we cracked the 100 country mark, correct? So now Young Life's in over 100 countries. Pretty cool. I mean, countries that represent every culture, every continent. I mean, pretty awesome. What does that mean for you? It means Young Life is not, and by the way, we're in every state in America too. That just means that Young Life is not just a local Evansville or insert your town. It's not local to just our area. It is worldwide. It's across the fruited plain. It's across the world. And it's everywhere. And it's here. And we get it. And we've almost been around for 80 years now. And so to be able to say that we're trying to reach every kid. And what does that mean? Every kid, Young Life has a lot of ministries now. When I was on staff, when I was actually involved in Young Life in the 80s, best I remember, we had Young Life, which was just for high school kids. Then someone came with the idea of middle school Young Life, and then Capernaum, which is our special needs kids, then Young Lives, which is our teen moms, or teen moms, or single moms, or whatever. College Young Life. I'm sure at this point, I'm probably missing something at this point, right? Is there more? Did I miss anything? Military, there you go, right. So we are trying to reach every kid. Chuck Reinhold, a famous Young Life staff person on the East Coast, said, I'm glad Young Life didn't stop before it got to my high school. Isn't that a great saying? Think about that. What kid in one of the high schools in your area that doesn't have Young Life doesn't deserve to hear what you've got to say and to sell? Because Jesus is the most attractive person to ever grace the earth. Why wouldn't we want to let that kid know as desperately as we want to let him know? Why wouldn't we want to let him know that or her know that? And then the last one, Young Life produces, this is great, Young Life produces the most fearless, creative, and best trained staff in ministry. And that is 100% true. And I can tell you they're way more creative. Well, maybe. I guess I don't want to brag too much about them because I felt like we were creative back in the day. But they have to be more creative today with the internet and with social media and all that. I don't know how our staff does it, except for they do, and they're great at it. But fearless. You want to talk fearless? If you've never been rejected by a sophomore named Kevin while doing contact work, you haven't lived. It's the scariest thing ever to go up to the high school, to go to a game, to go to a practice, to go whenever you go and meet kids. And the first time I did contact work, I couldn't get out of the car. And I told my area director, I did a great job of praying at the school today, Rick. Did you go in? Oh, but I didn't quite make it in, but I prayed a lot. And then the next day, I got out of my car and I prayed. And then the next day, I made it to the flagpoles. And then the next time I made it into the building. And then it got to a point where I just said, Lord, I'm so used to going down this hallway because now Kevin's not rejecting me. So I'm going to go down the hallway where Kevin is. So every day, Kevin. And then the Lord's going, Moose, you got it. You can almost go down that one without me now, Moose. Why don't you pick another hall, one that you have to bring me with you on? Fear coming back in, but going with the Lord. Going with the Lord. And that's what our staff are the best at. And that takes fearlessness to do that. No one wants to be rejected, certainly not by a middle schooler. And yet, we get rejected all the time. Staff get rejected all the time, and they keep taking. So as a side note, just pray for your staff and your leaders as often as you think about it against the feeling of rejection, because it is a real fear. But they're the most fearless, creative. Yes, sir, question? After this thought, we'll have a question? Okay, let me finish this thought and we'll get to it. And does it pertain to that, what I just said? Okay, let me just finish this then. Creative, if you've ever had to, these guys do, I don't know how many clubs they plan in a year, but it used to be like 10 in the fall and 12 to 13 in the spring. That's a lot of creativity that you got to come up with to entertain a kid for a week just to share Jesus with him at the end, or her. I say him, I mean they. Help me, right? But to share with kids and to be creative, that takes a lot. And that's just club. Then you have campaigners, and so they got to be creative. And then they go off to camp, and then these guys have assignments, whether they're doing program or speaking or head leaders or whatever they're doing. They go off to camp and have to be creative all there too. It just never ends. And then train. Some of your staff probably disappear. This time of year, maybe in January, they go off to area director school or some sort of training. It's not because they, want to go to Florida. Because listen, when they're at these training things, they're not on the beach. I can assure you of that. They're in class all day. It's not necessarily a fun time. They're there to learn and to be trained. And they do that because of the commitment to being trained, ongoing training for our local area, for their mission, for their personal ministry, and everything else. So Young Life produces the most fearless, creative, and best trained staff in ministry. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I've got 3 questions, actually. First, where do you get the vest that you're wearing right now? That was the first question that I got, believe it or not.
I see someone's checked out already at home.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Do you want me to answer it one by one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. My wife got it, and she just ordered it from Colorado. They said, can you put the YL logo on a Patagonia? Because apparently in Young Life, if you don't wear Patagonia, you just go to Crew or FCA or something. Young Life's Patagonia country, I guess. So.
Okay, second question. What camp is only $4 a night? Our whole committee wants to go.
54.
54.
54.
Okay, 54.
Did I say 54
That's
or
still
4?
pretty cheap.
I said 50. 62. It's now 62.
62. Okay, it keeps going up.
62. Do they throw in free milkshakes for that? Okay.
And let's see. How would you sell Young Life to a principal who is nervous about religious groups and outside leaders?
How would I sell it? Just by building the relationship. So I probably wouldn't sell it the first time I met them, but I would go out of my way to serve and ask for how I can. So this is easier to do for the staff than like a committee person, because I'm not around as much. But our staff person essentially just won our committee, our principal, by showing up. So he's at all the games, and when he's at the games, he goes and talks to the principal, says hello. He's not selling anything. He's just building a relationship. It's like anything else. You want somebody to trust you, you got to build a relationship. So with no strings attached. So what was happening is Robbie would go up to the principal. Robbie's our staff person. He would go up to the principal with 2 or 3 high school kids. Oh, hi, Principal so-and-so, that sort of thing. Oh, hey, wow, hey, yeah, oh, this is Robbie, he's our Young Life. Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, after a while, I mean, it's kind of impressive to see this guy, mentoring so many kids. So that might be a doorway in. And to be honest with you, we had a principal in our area that was just dead set against Young Life ever being there. So this was part of my prayer page in our playbook, but I'll say it now. We began praying that God would either change her heart, that she would meet the Lord, or remove her. And she retired like 2 years later, and taking her place was a guy that had gone to our Young Life banquet 3 years in a row, and now we have Young Life in that school. Pray the Lord of the harvest to raise up workers into his harvest field. So we actually prayed that. It would have been great if she'd have met the Lord, but she retired. So prayer too, yeah. Good question. The last one was the best of the 3, if that was the same person. I'm just kidding. Was that your regional director? Not to call him out or anything. No, don't answer that. Don't answer that. Is that it? Oh, okay, gotcha. Sorry. All right, so core competencies. So that's it for that. Okay, so essentially, it's our job, committee, to understand how to best and most effectively communicate what we as a committee and as Young Life are great about, that we don't get enough credit for. So it would be a good assignment for you at a committee meeting, at some future committee meeting, to go through some of the different areas. Okay, when talking to prospective donors, okay, at a banquet, how do we want to communicate Young Life? Because a lot of times we just launch into what Young Life's doing, and sometimes we forget to break it down to the Young Life 101 level to say, hey, here's what we are great at in our area that you may not know. And that helps to communicate who we are. Because once people, my parents are a classic example. They actually wanted to know about Young Life, even though they weren't believers at that point in time. And so it was explained to them what Young Life's great at, and they loved it, even though my parents weren't believers. Now, they ended up meeting the Lord, but it wasn't until after they joined the committee, oddly enough. Our area director, that might be another question that somebody would have. Are you allowed to have people who don't love the Lord on your committee? And I would tell you, it's a case-by-case basis. As long as you communicate to them what we are about, and they are on board with that, then maybe this is a great opportunity for God to use their gifts, but also God to bring them home. If you share with them what we will be doing at meetings, we will take time to pray, and this is about Jesus first, and we want kids to know Jesus, and they're not interested, they shouldn't be on the committee, because they'll be a roadblock, they'll be an obstacle. So that's my opinion. That's not Young Life sanctioned. I have no idea what Young Life would say as a whole, but I've lived that, and that's how I run my committee. If we have a parent, we actually have a parent right now that does not, but she loves everything about it. Her son is Mr. Young Life, and we're having an opportunity. She was at our golf subcommittee meeting, and we were praying for things, and kind of at one point I did the whole peeking around, and she was kind of like a deer caught in headlights, like, what do I do? But I think she enjoyed it. And who knows what the Lord will do? And if she meets the Lord, maybe her husband would meet the Lord, and maybe we get something more out of all that. Maybe their talents and their spiritual gifts would come into play at that point in time. So anyway, but practice this. Practice that. Any questions about the 4 core competencies? Okay. Let's keep them rolling then. Now, the good news for you here and at home is does everybody have the handout online? Okay, we're not going to be going through everything in the handout. Praise his name. But I'm going to, I will just go over it really quick in the sense of like a 1-minute explanation of the page. However, this next page we will go over. So turn to the second page. It's 2 things every committee chair and staff person wants help with. 2 things every committee chair and staff person want help with. And the first thing is how do we get everyone on the committee off the bench and into the huddle? Now, one of the biggest, this is a big one because some of you probably someone's asked me, Moose, what's the proper amount of committee members? I mean, how many committee members should we have? And my answer is always the same. It doesn't really matter as long as everyone on there is doing something, as long as everybody on the committee is doing their job. So if you have 22 people on your committee and only 4 people are really doing anything, then I'd rather just have the 4 people. If you have 4 people on your committee and you wish you had 20, but all 4 are doing something, man, you're doing great. Now we just keep praying that God would make it a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, and then as each role gets filled in. And we're going to go over each role here shortly. And in the second half, we'll take a break here shortly. A couple-minute break here shortly, and then we'll go over the playbook, and then that's it. So we should be done in about an hour and a half or less. Okay? Is that fair? Get everybody home quick and into whatever. Indiana play basketball today? I don't know. Is that the team out here? Indiana Hoosiers? Okay. I passed French Lick on the way here. That's where Larry Bird's from, isn't it? Yeah. That was pretty cool. I almost took a picture, but I didn't want to die. Okay. We're going to skip down to B because developing your area system is more of a seminar in and of itself, but it is simply just to say, highlighting the specific goals in your area, what are the obstacles and what are the solutions to overcoming those obstacles, okay? So developing your area system is very important. In football, a team might say, okay, in order for us to win the Super Bowl, we have to have an offense that's second to none. And a defense that's good enough to keep teams to 20 points, and our offense will just outscore them, okay? So that might be a very loose system. To which, if you're an opposing team, you'd go, okay, if we're going to stop, let's say, if you're, the Patriots, right? If you're going to stop them, then we need to figure out a way to stop Tom Brady. Or we need to figure out a way to score on that defense or whatever. So you're going to develop your system on that football team around that. You're going to recruit players that fit the system that help you overcome that obstacle of a great defense or a great offense. So in our area, the same way. The obstacles, what are they? What's keeping you from reaching every kid? Is it a lack of leaders? Is it hypocrisy among campaigners where kids are just turned off and they don't want to come? Is it financial? We don't have any financials. We don't have a staff person. We don't have a committee chair. We don't have a committee. What are the obstacles? Okay, and so how do we develop the system to help overcome those obstacles? So spend some time on that as a committee, just trying to think through, what do we want our area to look like? What are the goals of our area? Okay, but I do want to focus on B, educate the committee on the goals of the playbook, which we will go through. It is vitally important, obviously, to understand our core competency, because that is just helping educate you on how to communicate what we're good at that we don't get enough credit for. Help you educate you on how to talk about what we as a committee locally are good at that we're not getting enough credit for. Some people have off the charts great wildlife. Maybe the high school young life's not so great. They have off the charts great young life at the high school level, got no wildlife. We are decent at everything, and we're now trying to start Capernaum. So it's essentially you're trying to communicate that. This is what we're good at in this area, or this is what we're trying to get to as well. Understand there are no bench warmers on the committee. Okay, if you're there, God's given you a gift, He's given you talent, and He's given you time because you're there. So if you are on the committee, don't be a bench warmer. Talk to your chairperson or your area director and find out where your gifts are. Okay, and a lot of times you can also talk to spouse or pastor or dear friends, find out where do you see me? What's my gift? What would you say I'm good at? And that we have certain roles on the committee: finance, TDS, banquet, golf, prayer, leader care. There's a handful of obvious gifts that you would need. But some people may not feel like their gift fits any of that. Okay, well, what is your gift? We had a guy on our committee. His gift was, he was great. He was a carpenter. He was fantastic with making things. So we were like, oh, gosh, that doesn't playbook. I don't know. It doesn't really fit in our playbook, but he goes, I got it. We said, we're at our banquet. Would you do some cool display up on the stage or something during the banquet? Well, not only did he do something cool for 5 years running, he had cutouts that went from one side of the stage to the other, painted. Kids in Action was our theme one year. Kids, it was unbelievable. There was probably 10 cutout kids, and then another 10 from the door in all the way out to the parking lot that were like cheering on people, and our kids lined the other side. So there was a line of cardboard, wood cutout, board cutouts, of people. I mean, like life size, 6 feet tall. And the kids were on the other one. And when people would come in, they'd walk right in between the kids and the cutouts. And I'm thinking, wow, I could never have done that. But this is his gift. And it was easy for him and probably fun. And we were able to use his gifts. People talk about those banquets still. We haven't had anything like that in years since he left the committee. But his gift, awesome. Guy in San Antonio said, Moose, I got a guy on my committee that does a pig pull. I have no idea what that is. No, it was a barbecue. And he goes, Moose, he does everything. He has these spits out, and he raises about $20,000 to $25,000 doing a barbecue. I do nothing. And this came on the heels of the area director saying, I was getting ready to leave Young Life. I was just my committee's done nothing. I have this one guy. He does a pig pull. And one guy doing his role, working out his gift to the area, is keeping this staff person on staff. Imagine if everybody on the committee was working in their role. There's a lady, and she was, I can't remember where she's from, and it escapes me, but her friend, at one of these meetings, her friend spoke up for her because most servants are too, they don't want to share, they just, it's between me and the Lord. But her friend ratted her out and said, a couple of weeks ago, we started a girls' Bible study, a girls' small group. Just the girls, campaigner girls. And she said, I'll have it at my house, no big deal if you want to have it at my house. They're like, okay, cool. The girls, there's like 6 girls the first week, and they show up, and this is where it was this woman's gift. Tablecloths, beautiful fine linen, china, candles, and I like quiche and really nice foods that probably took a long time to make. Like everything was homemade, and the girls walked in the room and they're like this. This is for us. This is for us, and they were blown away. Next week, 20 girls showed up. The following week, 40 girls showed up, and that's that's as far as that. They'd only been doing it 3 weeks. That when I was sharing it, that didn't keep in touch with them. Who knows if it got bigger or not? But I know that those girls will always talk about their small group at this woman's house, because it was in her gift to make just the small group alone so special. If you'd asked me to make it special, it would have been donuts, and the cheapest ones I could find, and coffee. And I probably would have got a container, like something cheap. And that would be it. And I'd hope to blow them away with a good study. But this woman used her gifts to make it awesome. So find what your gift is. You have one. You have a gift. Everybody has a gift. If you haven't opened it yet, start asking somebody who knows you better than you, apparently, because you have a gift. And open that gift and let people be blessed in your area by that gift. Maybe you're the gift of encouragement. Get in front of leaders and encourage them. They're going to be given a club talk at some point. Show up. Show up at their club talk and pray for them and encourage them. Give them a ice cream, gift card to some ice cream place or a Starbucks or something, just to let them know. Just do what you're good at, encouraging. Whatever it is. You might be great with money. Maybe you should help figure out the financial piece of your area, right? So there's whatever your gift is, do it proactively. Learn your position. Whatever your role is, do it proactively. Always be in the position of freeing up your staff and your leaders, not giving them more to do. That's unhealthy. We, the committee, must own the area. At every committee meeting, the goal at our committee meeting, the goal is that I want our staff to leave a committee meeting going, hey, is there anything we can do? That's to me, that's doing it. Because the committee has a one-page job description. Ready? Okay. The area director job description is 5 pages long and earthly impossible. It can't be done. It can't. And if it was done, they would last a year and they'd quit because it's that impossible. And so, however, here's the beauty. This is why you matter. This is why we matter so much. You can actually almost overlap the 2 job descriptions and they line up nearly perfectly, almost, at least in terms of the functions of the area. Not necessarily training leaders and deploying and all that sort of thing, but a lot of it can overlap, meaning we can really help partner with our staff person. I can tell you the loneliest job in young life sometimes is a staff person in an area where they're doing everything. Very lonely. And most of the time, your staff person won't speak up and say, I need help. They'll just do it themselves. That's the way I did it, okay? And so here you are, and you want it. You're there to serve. But here they are, these entrepreneurs at heart who don't want to ruffle any feathers, and they're killing themselves only to report to you guys what's going on. So I'm telling you, whatever your gift is, in fact, at a next committee meeting, have your staff person. This is a job you can give them to do unless you can access staff resources yourself. Get the committee chair job description. I say committee chair because a committee chair is the committee, in my opinion, is the committee job description. Bring the committee chair job description to your committee meeting and go over it and learn how you can serve better, at least on the administrative side in a lot of ways, your staff person. Question?
Yeah. What is, the first question was, what have you seen, like some creative ways that the committee can take care of staff besides Christmas, was their question.
What are other ways to take care of
you can
staff
take- yeah.
other than Christmas, meaning like a gift at
Once a year
gift at
type
Christmas?
thing, yeah.
Well, we'll go over this in the playbook a little bit more later, but on our committee, we adopt a leader, not like physically adopt them, but we put a name in a hat at the beginning of each semester. We pull a name out. Men on the committee get the guy leaders and staff, if there's guy staff, and the ladies get lady leaders and female staff. So, it's gender safe, whatever the word is. And that's our person for the semester. So, like, I get Robbie's, because I'm the committee chair, I actually don't put my hand in there. I say, give me the area director. And so Robbie and I, we do lunch once a week. Now, I'm in sales, so I can do that. But maybe on the weekend, you can take your staff person out a little bit more. Lunch is great. Phone calls. I mean, listen, relationships, if your staff person is a millennial or younger, maybe use social media a little bit more to connect with them as well as see them in person. Let me just say this. Okay, so I'm in sales, and a majority of our market just became millennials, and so all the older agents in our office are getting angry about, I hate working with millennials. They can't make up their minds. And I'm like, okay, well, give them to me. I'll figure them out, because that's where all the money is right now in my line of work. So if you're not going to figure them out, get out of the way and let me do it. And so that's just a fact, I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. At some point, they were like, oh, those Gen Xers, good gosh, all they want is to get rich and be Gordon Gekko, which is true. Gordon Gekko would have been awesome to be. He was on Wall Street. Anyway, but learn your staff person, and that would help you a ton too. I mean, if they're younger, great. If they're older, like if some people are in areas where your staff person is older, find out what your staff person likes to do. Robbie's not that much older, but one nice thing is he loves to have a cigar. So when it gets warm out, we sit in my backyard, have a cigar. I'm not a beer drinker, but he's welcome to have one if he wants, and that's okay. I usually have a Coke Zero or Zevia or whatever, but we'll have a cigar together and we'll just hang out and get to know each other. So I would just say, in a healthy way, it's all related. We're in a relationships game, and if you think that's the only way to serve is to give a gift at Christmas, then that's okay. We actually give our staff, hey, here you go. Your staff's going to love to hear this. We give our staff bonuses at the end of the year. So we gave our area director, I don't want to tell you the amount, but the area directors can ask me later and I'll tell them to set the heart. No, committee, you can ask me. I won't, don't tell your staff. I don't want to set the bar high. All right, oof. Rewind that tape we'll just cut that part out. But there are ways to do it. Okay, so but the short answer for the long answer is it's relationships. Stay involved with your staff and your leaders all year long, not just at Christmas time. It's not necessarily about giving gifts. It's about time. It's about time. Yes?
What is the perfect size committee? And I think what they're asking is there a formula for their area about how to know how many committee members to have? Yeah.
So the perfect size, okay, so every area has roles, right? We all have the standard roles, right? We have to raise money. So how we do that is probably going to be typically a banquet, a golf tournament, an end of the year campaign, whatever you do for your area. So those are 3 roles. You have a prayer role, you have a finance role, someone who reports on how the finances are. That finance person may also be the TDS chair, taking donors seriously. That's the person that takes the numbers and breaks up the donors and says, here's our game plan to serving each of these donors. We're going to go over that in the next hour. So I would say, again, you'd love to have probably 10 to 12 people all doing a role. That would be that'd be great. More than that would be fantastic, as long as they're working a role. But the reality is, most committees are somewhere between 6 and 10 people. So just make sure who's on your committee is doing something. And don't be afraid, unless they're a very key committee member. If they're serving the committee just by their presence, meaning people are showing up because that person's here, even though they don't have a whole lot of time to do anything else, that's one thing. But if you have someone that's really not adding a whole ton, and they don't show up a ton, it's okay to say, hey, why don't you step off the committee, because you really don't want, the goal is you want your staff person to go, this is my team. This is my team. And if there's somebody who's not showing up, they're not on the team. That's not what we want to communicate to our staff as a team player. That's not healthy. In fact, that actually hurt. That means they know they can't count on you because you can't come. So it's our job to be there. And I would say that's the healthiest thing, is be there. But 10 to 12, but again, whoever's there needs to be doing something. Okay? Okay, C, and then we're going to take a break, a little 2 or 3 minute break just for station identification. Always wanted to say that. Okay. C, committee get directly connected to the front lines. All right? Front lines for us is club, campaigners, and camp. Contact work, you could throw that in there. This will add fuel to your spiritual gas tank. All right, 1, go to a club. Visit the leaders in action. If you've never done that, we require our leaders to pick 1 club per year and go to a club. In fact, we actually have a sign up because where we have club, we actually need pretty extensive setup and tear down. So we actually have one of those little, what are those things called? You send them out and everybody, what's it called? Sign Up Genius, thank you. See, millennial. That's where we need, that's what I'm saying. See the added right there. Okay, Sign Up Genius. So we have people sign up to tear down, and so go visit club. It's easy to do. Show up. If you're adopting a leader, which we talked about which we will talk about under leader care. If you're adopting, when your leader is getting ready to speak, show up. Go to club the week that they're going to be there, and just encourage him or her. Just encourage that person. All right. Go to camp as an adult guest. We talked about this. Total game changer. Total game changer. Those that go to camp. Almost like kids. I mean, the kids that go to camp, man, they're more likely to become campaigners and real leaders in the school for Christ. The adult guests, the committee that go to be adult guests are more likely to be on the committee longer, do more, invest more, go longer, wider, higher, all that. So if you have never had what's the closest camp to here? Sharp Top? Great camp. Phenomenal camp. I mean, they're all phenomenal. But if you get a chance to, how far away is it? How many hours? 6 hours. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. Yeah, go do Sharp Top. That's a great, and it's down south. That's awesome. Go to Sharp Top. If you like water camps, Saranac Lake, New York, or what's the one in Minnesota? Castaway. Thank you. Castaway. Those are 2 great water camps. Water skiing, things like that. You know, have fun with it. You know, understand there's never nothing to do. We are always moving forward on this. The staff and leaders are your campaigner kids. The staff and leaders are our campaigner kids. Call them, email them, invite them over, invest in them. All right? Let's take a couple minute break and stand up, go whatever you got to do, and then we'll start here in 2 minutes. It'll be quick because we don't want to lose those at home or those, wherever they're at. All right. Test, test, test. There we go. I turned it off accidentally. Okay, let's start back up, folks. Make best use of time. And we're going to hit the home stretch here pretty quick, so I think you'll be happy. Okay, if any questions come in, obviously, hit me in the back there. But by way of, I think it's important to share, nuggets that you're learning. But by way of just our first session, what would be one thing that you would say, you know what, this is if I left right now, this is the one thing I've learned that I might take with me? Just raise your hand. Be intentional with your staff. Okay, be intentional with your staff and your leader. I'll repeat it if you want me to. That way, can they hear at home? The mic, okay, yeah. Raise your hand if you do that. Say it one more time, that way they can hear it. Okay. Now, we didn't hear that in here, but do you think they heard it? Be intentional with your staff and leaders. They heard it now, okay. I can repeat it if it's tough too, okay. If it's not working. It is working, okay, cool. All right, any other? What's a nugget? What's one nugget you've learned so far that you're going to take with you? Think about it. We're not leaving until everyone shares. No, I'm kidding. No, but just a couple people. Certainly there's got to be some. There we go.
The importance of committee, knowing those core competencies and being able to communicate those well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And to follow up, while you're thinking about your nugget, to follow up, I had mentioned earlier that if someone on the committee is not doing something, then you ought to take them off the committee. Every area should have a soft landing zone for people leaving the committee. In our area, we call it Friends of Young Life. They're still invited to everything, banquet, golf tournament, everything. We just don't invite them to committee meetings anymore. But they're still as much a part of the area as they were before. We just don't, we don't want them to feel guilty because they can't come. But we also want them to still be involved. So hope that clarifies it. Anybody else?
Getting every committee member to camp.
Okay, great. And you've been, right? You raised your hand. Where did you guys go?
Timberwolf.
Timberwolf, awesome. Love Timberwolf. It's a great camp. Yes.
Even though I should have realized this, I was thinking when you were talking about the staff being fearless and really praying for them that they could be, I guess that they already were since they're doing that position, because I can't imagine doing that. That really was an eye-opener, even though I should have known that, but that was really an eye-opener to pray for them to be fearless.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things, anybody else? One of the things that I would say, if you get a chance, is do contact work with them. Not every time. They probably don't want you to do it every time. But maybe a game, like go to a game, and I'm telling you, you'll see the value of showing up, because when you show up like they do and you build relationships with kids, it's not nearly as fearful. It's still fearful, but it's not nearly as. So, but you will feel it. You will feel it. You'll feel like you wore the wrong outfit. Let's just put it that way. And everyone's staring at you. That's how it feels. But I'm telling you, it's really good to learn, like you're saying. I think we all need to understand this is what our staff and our leaders are doing. This is what they're going through. I think understanding that would help you a ton in how you work out your role on the committee, for sure. Anybody else? Nugget. It's a great one. It's nice that you're rubbing her shoulder, too. Just saying. I'm a hugger myself. All right. Won't beat a dead horse going once, going twice. All right. By the way, thank you to the donut place here. Those things are pretty awesome looking. I did not have any Claire, but the old me would have grabbed one up. I've lost 120 pounds. So, thank you. I wish, yeah, well, anyway. I almost said I wish I could have one of those so bad, but I don't. I mean, in my brain I can taste it, but I'm okay. I'll let it go. Let it go. That's the old me. Out with the old, in with the new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Small victory won. Okay, second half here. We're getting ready to go into the committee playbook. But let me just go through a couple pages. When I say fast, I mean like I'm going to tell you how to process it. If a great exercise for you guys would be to, on the third page, is finding and recruiting new committee members. That's everybody's job, not just the staff person. It's all of our jobs. And that's a great assignment for you guys to do probably every March. So next month, as you start thinking, we always invite, when we're recruiting for new committee members, we invite them in April to a September meeting. They never say no. How can you, are you that full up on your schedule to say no to a September meeting in April? So invite people to be a part of an informational committee night meeting in April, May the latest, before they head out for summer, to a September meeting. And that's the meeting in September where you basically you'll take this playbook and you'll say, here, this is what we need. This is the heart of our area. This is where, these are the goals, and these are the roles that will help us fulfill these goals. Do you fit any of these roles? And then just let people walk their way through it. People tend to be a part of a committee when their role is defined. Not tend. People will be more a part of the committee when their role is defined. We assume two things with every staff person, with every committee member. We assume that they love Young Life because they're there, and we're also assuming that they have a lack of time. So how do we take their love for Young Life and their lack of time and sort of achieve this maximum efficiency with their time? So that's where this playbook came into being. It's to define what it is we're asking each committee member to do for the role they're on. Okay, so it's pretty simple, and we're getting ready to go through it. But finding committee, that's us. You can go over that. Another seminar in your own committee. If you're looking for training stuff at a committee meeting, putting the fun in fundraising. You see what I did there? Fun and fundraising. This is TDS. We're actually going to go over that in the playbook, so we won't do that here, but that's a fun one to go through. And then I have a general outline of a committee meeting. If any of you guys are wondering, what are committee meetings? I will tell you this. This is as a training tip. You're going to have different personalities in your committee. You're going to have type A's. You may be that type A. And then you're going to have the relational people. And sometimes you have a relational type A, but rare. Okay. So type A and relational. And somewhere in that meeting, it's got to be more about business. And somewhere in that meeting, it's got to be about family time. Because and most of us are lopsided depending on the committee chair. Right? If the committee chair is a type A, it feels like a business meeting, and then I'm telling you, your relational people are going to get dried up. I am a relational person. I have to fight really hard to keep business a priority in a committee meeting because I'm all about relationships. I want to feel good. I want to encourage. I want the team to feel like they just hopped in the huddle and got the next play, and they feel excited to go do it. Right? So. But you have to have a good mix, okay? So your committee meeting should have a great element of family time and a great element of training time. So a typical committee meeting for us is right in front of you. You can look that out. You can look at it on your own, but yeah, all right. Then a fun one for you committee chairs. It's best practices from A to Z, how to make a can't miss committee meeting. Having said that, you can mess up committee meetings. I can tell you my worst committee meetings are the ones where I put off planning for it until the last couple of days. Then it feels like a planning meeting. It feels like something that's canned, that I didn't put my heart and soul into. I would say throughout the month, just make notes of what you want to talk about, the things you want to focus on. I get together with my staff person 1 week before every committee meeting at lunch over wings and cheese fries, which I don't do the cheese fries anymore, and that's where we plan out. Now, we hang out a lot together just to be buddies and talk about life, but 1 meeting per month is to go over our next committee meeting, and all of our staff show up to that. Anyway, there's just some cool things. You don't have to do all of these every committee meeting, but some of them. And then the next one, and we won't go over these either, and this is the only other one I'll call it before we hit the playbook. There's a page of things or what Young Life staff wish that committee people knew about them that they'd probably never tell you. All right? A couple of them. Staff are the least trained and least confident in dealing with you. Kids, no problem. Building ministry at a school, got it. They're done. That's back of the hand for them. But dealing with adults, what does that mean? Well, I mean, when I was on staff, it's hard to try to talk the business of Young Life when there's a person that runs a business bigger than anything I've ever run, that makes more money than I've ever made, that lives in a house bigger than anything I'll ever own. It's tough to lead people like that. So just be aware. Be aware that they want to connect, your staff want to connect with you on that level. But it's not natural all the time. So you may have superb staff that get that quick, but they're not as confident as you think. And a lot of times, especially with your younger staff, it's even harder, all right? A year ago, they were looking at professors up front. Now they're looking at business professionals, moms of 15 to 18 years, people further down the road than them in life that have experienced way more than they have, and they're just trying to pay off student loans and run Young Life and do kid work, and yet they have 5-page job descriptions. So it can be very hard, and you can be very intimidating. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all these, but these are really, really good for you to go over as a committee and with your staff person. And your staff person ought to, go over this with you so that they can, and now they'll tell you, oh, I don't feel that way. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I mean, I did, and I felt like I was pretty arrogant. I thought I had all my crap together. But I felt a lot of this, right? Okay. All right. So that's good. The last one is sort of a summation of some of the other pages that are already in here. You don't need to go over that. But those are the notes. Okay. Now the fun stuff. Now the committee playbook. This playbook that you have this came from what I told you earlier. When I started the committee that I'm on right now, we had 3 people, and 2 of which were debating rolling off and ended up eventually rolling off. And so we went and began trying to figure out how do we recruit committee members. We did. We ended up having about 22 people in the room the first month that I took over, and that came on the heels of asking and getting together with a lot of, like I said, I told you how a lot of my friends live in the neighborhood. We were all touched by Young Life. That was our original committee. So that probably won't happen for most people, but that was the lowest hanging fruit. Many of them are still on the committee. But a lot of my old friends from Oakton High School that live out in Ashburn now, whose kids go to Stonebridge High School, are still on my committee. So we had a room full of committee. Well, that's good, right? Except, oh no, what am I going to do with all these people? So nothing more pathetic than having a room full of people and nothing to do for them. So that's when I just started typing out in my brain. I know Young Life has manuals for everything, but I didn't look at any of them, which I probably should have. But I just said, okay, what do we need for our area? So this playbook is relevant to my area. Now, when we're done, I'm going to email Keith or whoever you can forward it to an editable version. It's Microsoft, it's Excel, Microsoft Excel, an editable version of this playbook. So you can form fit it to your area as you see fit. Okay, so if you have the playbook, go ahead and flip it open real fast. The significance of the team. Success is accomplished when working as a team. Maximum efficiency when everyone understands the playbook. The area director is the quarterback. I point that out because, like in football, the quarterback can't play every position, but the quarterback does need to know on each play what each position is doing. They can't do it themselves. They can't do a pass play, wind up, throw it, run down, and catch it. That's unhealthy and not. It can't happen. It won't happen. But they do need to know, where is that person going? They do need to know, which way is the running back going? Which way am I handing that ball off? They can't do it themselves. This is you guys. This is where you. But they do need to know what's going on in the area. They do need to know what's going on. So area directors, you need to know everything going on, but you don't have to do all of it. You don't have to really do, hopefully, any of it. The area director needs to know the entire playbook and can only be successful when utilizing others. Players become successful and excellent when they're in roles. Players can become excellent in their roles if they're set up for success. So know the playbook, study the playbook. My playbook. All right, we're a family. Okay, my playbook's in my bathroom. Spend a lot of time there on certain times. Okay, so it's a great place to go, men, and read the playbook. Just have some time to read the playbook. Okay, all right. I'm sorry if that was weird. The married women are like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, okay. Number 7, a good huddle produces good results. A good huddle being our committee huddle, our group. All right, so a good committee produces good results. Good results produce a larger fan base. A larger fan base produces more community excitement. More community excitement produces more community involvement, and ministry parallels this, right? If we're doing our job as a committee, we're going to produce good results. We're going to have a healthier staff person because everybody on the committee is doing their role. So our staff people are filled with excitement because the job is getting done at the committee level. They don't have to do it, right? So good results, and then when we have good results, better ministry, more things happening, more healthy ministry. And when people see healthy ministry, they get excited. When they get excited, they want to be involved in it, all right? So this is where the core competencies come into play, is being able to explain what we're doing so they understand what they can get involved in. When they get to that excited, when they become excited, they know how to get involved. And no one succeeds unless we all succeed, encourage one another, and spur one another on. And this is really true. I can tell you one of the hardest things is to be on a committee when somebody shares something that they're doing and then there's sort of no one says anything. Or worse, they kind of pick it apart or complain or basically tell them that you did it wrong or whatever. And I tell you, yeah, we got knuckleheads on the committee, and I'm probably one of them. But man, as far as it is with you, unless they are going against the grain of the area, man, encourage people when they share at committee meetings, when they have the guts to say what they're doing, what their gift is producing, or what they're trying to produce with their gift. Encourage one. Man, let your committee be known as a group of people that encourage each other. We just don't have time for the division. We don't have time for the opposite. Again, unless you have somebody that's trying to take the area or take the task that they're involved in a direction that is not in line with the vision of the area director and the committee chair. Okay, so, but be encouraging to one another. Good results from, and practice. So know the playbook and practice it. Practice. Like in football, you can't just they can't read the playbook and know every play. They have to read the playbook and practice. So over and over and over again. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and flip to committee chair. That's page 1. So the way this is going to read is pretty simple. From left to right, the role. This particular role is committee chair. What are the qualifications for this role? Gift of leadership, good time manager, good delegator, organized, respected, and godly. Okay, what are the goals? Now, again, there is a committee chair handbook, which is probably 64 pages long. If you're a committee chair, request one from your staff person. If not, here's your one-page cheat sheet. Okay? Goal number 1, support your area director. And then the next column is, what are the plays? What are the plays that help us achieve those goals? So for personal goal is to support the area director personally. The plays to achieve that goal: regularly meet with your area director, at least once a month, at least. Provide leadership, impart wisdom, develop a friendship. Spiritually, what are the plays to help us achieve the goal of supporting our area director spiritually? Pray for and with the area director. Encourage them in their spiritual journey. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Professionally, give guidance to your area director in the areas of time management, following up immediately with people, delegating assignments, getting assignments done on time, being early, not on time, delegating clearly, servant leadership, vision casting, and strategy. All right, and then you can read that. Then the next column is, okay, what other players can help us with these plays and achieving these goals, right? So you have committee chair, obviously is one of them. Subcommittee chairs can help you, and the staff. All right, next page, prayer chair. This is probably as far as priority in my estimation, this is the most important chair to fill. This is the first chair you fill. Almost before committee chair, but I would say fill them both at the same time. Okay, role, prayer chair. Qualifications, gifted prayer warrior, able to inspire others to pray, good at delegating prayer, getting prayer needs out to the team, respected and organized. Goal number 1, unite the committee in prayer. Unite the committee in prayer. What are the plays to help achieve that goal? Ask for weekly, monthly prayer requests, send them out, organize prayer needs, chains, etc. Help join in Young Life's National Prayer Days. It's the first Tuesday of October and March. You got one coming up. Goal number 2, determine what the strongholds are in the area that keep you from reaching every kid in every school. What are the plays to help achieve those goals? Get the committee to agree what the strongholds are. Send that list to the team. Organize specific prayer gatherings to pray against the strongholds. Be creative as to your strategy for praying against the strongholds. And then meet a half an hour before each committee meeting to pray. That's what we do. So from 7 to 7:30 before each meeting, it's optional. Whoever wants to come and pray, we pray. And we don't talk fellowship or anything else. We just get there and we start praying. And at our committee meetings, not everyone, I need to do a better job of this, but at most of our committee meetings, we do usually have a list of what the strongholds are in our area, what the strongholds are. Our biggest one is not money. Our biggest one is lack of leaders. We're not in a college town. So we always struggle for leaders, losing some. As soon as we gain a leader, we lose a leader. It's just a never-ending battle. So that's a big one. So then the next column, what other players can help us? Any committee member who can pray can help us in the prayer, with prayer. Staff, leaders, and really any believer in the community who loves kids and believes in the ministry of Young Life. If God is nudging your heart, I mean, if some of this stuff is touching you right now, maybe you're the prayer chair. Maybe you need to be the prayer chair in your area. Same with committee chair. If something about that was like, you know what, I'd like to be that person. I'd like to be that person. Maybe God's calling you. Okay? Not everybody can be the prayer chair. Not everybody, but somebody can. Somebody ought to. Yes. Question?
Yeah, in smaller committees, is it reasonable to ask members to be a chair and participate in one or multiple subcommittees?
Fantastic question, whoever asked it, okay? Yes. In fact, on smaller committees, you're probably going to be on 2 or 3 subcommittees. On our committee, everybody's on the prayer subcommittee. Not everybody is the prayer chair, but we're all called to pray. That's biblical. So you're on the prayer subcommittee. We are also on the TDS subcommittee, and I'll get to that in a second before you go, whoa, I'm not interested in taking donors seriously. I'm going to tell you why you are and how easy it is, so don't panic. Okay, but yes, the answer is on smaller committees, it is going to be required for some of you to double up. And, make sure whatever your gift is, you're definitely on that subcommittee, you're in that team, but you may be called upon to help at the banquet, to help put together the golf tournament. Whatever it is you're doing, you may be called upon to help out on. So, just because your gift is not in that area, if there is a need, you need to step up, because it is all of our jobs collectively to run the area, to help run the area. So, great question. All right? Yep. Would I what? No. No, you know what, though? If you find another one of these guys here, I wouldn't beat you up for that. Let me finish this. Okay. It's always fun. Okay, let's go ahead and switch to, we're going to flip past banquet chair, because the banquet chair, this is my banquet, but it reads the same way. Okay, what are the roles? I would say that's a pretty specific role qualification. Goals, plays, and anybody else that can help us on that, okay? Let's go to TDS. This is the one I really want to hit on. All right, TDS chair. Organized, the qualifications are organized, good at delegating, relatively good with numbers, and creative. The goal of the TDS chair is to help retain the donor base. Did you know the average area loses 50% of its donor base per year? That's a national number. Maybe yours is smaller, maybe yours is greater. Now, some of that's got a little bit of an asterisk next to it, right? If you have a golf tournament and somebody gives $100 towards a whole sponsor sign, and they were never planning on being a monthly giver ever, and so they, whatever, or they're doing a fundraiser for a camp and they gave a one-time fee. So you're going to lose donors, right? You probably a really healthy would be 15 to 20%, losing 15 to 20%. In other words, retaining 80 to 85%. Now, There's a reason that I believe that we lose our donor base so much, so often. And that is, in Young Life, here's what we're great at. Young Life is a relational ministry, the most relational ministry I've ever seen. And our staff and our leaders model every day what quality relational ministry looks like. Unfortunately, at the donor level, we do the opposite. We only ever ask for money. We don't usually build relationship. We usually just pick our times to ask for money. What are the times we pick to ask for money? Banquet, camp, golf, end of the year, if you do an end of the year giving campaign. So we usually have 3 or 4 times where we're just saying, hey, here's another thing you can give towards. And we don't do contact work. So if you're on staff, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, staff. If you asked your staff, how often do you think you need to be at the school or with kids in order to have a healthy, vibrant club? I'm not saying 150 kids. I'm just saying how I will tell you, they'll probably say minimum of twice, maximum of 4 times a week, but a minimum of twice. We have to be at the school. We have to be with kids. We have to become part of the fabric of their world so that they can trust us. So that when we say there's no strings attached, they believe it because we've just been spending all this time. I had a kid for 4 years that kept coming, that I did contact work with. He never came to Young Life Club once. And that's okay because I was just there to build a friendship. That's it. But so our staff, they do a lot of contact. They're always with people. So for us, the model would be our donor base is our club. Our donor base committee is our Young Life Club kids. And so we have to do contact work with them. Contact work doesn't mean we go to their high school or their work or anything like that. Suppose you could take them out to lunch, meet them, and pick them up, take them out to lunch. But I mean, creatively speaking, how are we connecting with the people that are saying, here's some money, I want to give it to your ministry? How are we doing with that? Young Life says TDS, taking donors seriously. I use the T for thanking. And the reason I do that is because nobody ever stopped giving to Young Life because they were thanked too much. And so how easy is it for us if I said to you, committee, all right, I'm going to break up the donor base. There's 10 of us and there's 100 donors. That's 10 people each. You get 10 donors. You don't know how much money they give, but what I want you to do, and I'm going to give you the script, we want you to call them, mail them, however you want to communicate with them, write them a letter. We want you to thank them with an update. And the tagline is because of you. So the thank you would be, hey, Keith, thank you. This is Moose from the Young Life Committee. I want to thank you for giving to Young Life. Now, I have no idea how much Keith gave. I want to thank you for giving to Young Life. Because of you, we took 45 kids to Sharp Top Cove, and 10 of them met the Lord. 10 kids met the Lord, will reshape the landscape of heaven because of you. And I just want to say thank you. Click or send. Now, if I said to you, hey, I want you to call each of your 10 people and ask them for money, who wants to do that? Not one hand would go up. But if I said, would you just thank people for criminy sakes? Let's thank people, right? Let's thank them for what they're giving because it's having a huge impact. Would you do that? Would you be okay to write 10 letters, make 10 calls? Sure. Everybody's hand goes up. And it's easy because we're in a relational, you're relational people. You love this because of its impact on you. So it's easy to say thank you for that. And that's what we got to do. So on a quarterly basis, I want you to start thanking your donors with an update because of you. All right, so some of the plays, gather the donor list and put them into Pri 1 through Pri 4. That's priority. 4 different priorities. This has nothing to do with the size of the gift that you're going to give them or whatever. It just breaks it down, and so you know, okay, these people probably gave at the golf tournament. They give $250 a year or less. They give $5,000 a year higher. Their priority 1. Maybe you do want to personally visit them. I don't know. I don't know. Try not to, we don't do any favoritism. We really don't. If you have a priority one list, like I take the priority ones in our area, I'm on the phone all the time thanking them, giving them an update. Bill Diggs, he owns 2 Chick-fil-A's. Bill, thank you. Hey, can I come and have lunch? I'm going to come to your shop. You going to be there today? Yes. Cool. Let's have lunch. Great. I get there. I say, Bill, let's get in line. What do you mean? I said, well, let's get in line. I want to buy you lunch. He goes, well, it's my store. I was like, I want to buy you lunch at your store. And just shut up and let me buy you lunch, for crying many sakes, Bill. So we get in line, and I say, get this man whatever he wants on me. And the people behind the desk are like, what? Does he know? I know it's your boss. I know just get him whatever he wants. Okay, so Bill orders, and he's kind of sheepish when he orders, whatever. He feels weird. And I pay for Bill and for me to have lunch, and we go sit down, and I sit and I say, thanks, Bill. Just want to let you know, because of you, this is what's been happening. And I do this once a quarter with Bill. My son works at that Chick-fil-A, so I've developed a great relationship. And I mean, almost every time, he's like, do you need anything? You have any events coming up where you need me to give you guys like free sandwiches or anything like that? No, Bill. Nope, just want to say thanks, man. And when people are just being thanked, their guard comes down. They pick up the phone. They answer your call after letting you leave a message for 3 months in a row, when they realize there was no string attached. But most of the time we have a string attached at the committee level when we're talking about money. Hey, we have this coming up. Would you give this? String attached. Hey, we have this event. Would you come because it's a fun string attached. Thanking, no string attached. Not asking for any money. Wiley Scott. Wiley Scott is the divisional vice president for our division. I sold him his house. He lives in my neighborhood, which is a little intimidating when you're at banquets. But I do TDS with Wiley. And Wiley brings his checkbook because he thinks, even though I told him all about TDS, what I'm doing in his division on training on TDS, he still brings his checkbook to give money to our area. I said, I'm not taking your check. You can mail it in, but I'm not taking it here. I'm not here to take it. So, all right, determine and plan how you want to thank and approach each priority level. Execute the plan by delegating names to committee members and regular follow-up with committee members on executing the TDS plan. Any member can help you on the committee. Any staff can help you. I would say, again, I'm also not saying don't ask for money. I'm saying you personally don't ask for money. When you send out your banquet time of the year, when you're ready to have a banquet, yes, you're going to let them know this is a fundraiser, and fundraisers, we ask for money. So they know that. That's going to be a group mailing, and then the person inviting, yes, obviously that's a personal invite, but you're not asking them specifically, you're just asking them to come to the banquet. Yes, you're going to have a golf tournament. You're going to ask for the golf tournament. You're going to ask again at the end of the year. So there's 3 ways right there. They're going to be asked already. You don't have to. You just need to thank them. You just need to build a relationship. Question?
Yeah, the question is about the financial chair role. So the description in the handout, they're wanting to know, because it's different from the TDS chair, how does the responsibility or the role, how does it play out?
So the role is different, and I don't even have it in the playbook because our TDS chair, it was also our finance, so forgive me on that. But finance is the person that just knows the numbers. The TDS person is the person that has the plan with the donor base to help make sure those numbers stay the way they are. The finance is reporting, hey guys, our budget is this, we spent this, we took in this, we are this far ahead. We're 1.2 months ahead, or we're 0.1 month ahead, and oh, by the way, if this happens, and by the way, your finance person should be the one that knows how to articulate, if we go behind and our staff is 25% reduced salary, they need to be the one that advocates for you. So that's the answer to that question, which then backs me up to something I forgot to say. The number one chief advocate for the staff person in the area is the committee chair. Therefore, the staff person should always pick their committee chair. They should always pick the person that is their greatest advocate. They may not be the most equipped to be the committee chair, right? They may not be the most gifted at it, but the best advocate, the number one advocate for that committee, for that staff person should be their chairperson. That's the person that takes their vision and puts legs to it with the committee, that advocates to the committee and to the community and says, this is what we're thinking, let's make it happen, okay?
Yeah.
Question.
And second one, do you still call your annual event a banquet?
We do. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. We call it a celebration. Actually, we call it a celebration dinner, but it's our banquet. So, I mean, if it might just be semantics. I mean, some people think the banquet has a bad sting to it or doesn't sound great. So be creative. Yeah, for sure. I'm assuming that's where that question came from is, yeah, okay. Good on that? Yes, question.
There's a narrative that's often going on around banquets about like the investment of time into it and what you get out of it. Are you finding that to be a concerning trend? I mean, do you guys have conversations about let's scrap the event and put time into the relationships?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So is it worth money and time invested is the question into like a banquet per se. Is it worth it when instead you could put more money and time into TDS, building relationships, and et cetera? So the answer to the question is it always, you need to you have to have a good read of your own area, right? If banquets are not working and everybody's spinning their wheels and you're not making a whole lot off the banquet, then yes, perhaps you should spend more time building relationships. There are areas whose staff person, something went wrong, they're gone, and now they're doing some rebuilding. And yeah, I mean, you have to just go back to what we're great at, which is building relationships. So for our area, banquets work. Banquets, golf, everything works for us. We spend probably $10,000 run for the banquet and make about 90. Well, and then minus a 10, so we net 80-ish. So for us, that's our monthly budget's about 19,000. So it's a good boost for us. So it does work. So there's a lot of people that are they've sort of scrapped their golf tournament depending on their format, because the golf tournament costs them X amount. They're only making this, and it seems like we're doing a lot of work for $5,000. You know, maybe we should spend it some other way. So, but it's time to take stock of what you got and what's working. And if it's not working, figure out why it's not working. But the relational piece of building relationships always has to be the number one thing you're doing. So, and because if you're not, the reason areas go into deficit is because remember that 50% they're not retaining? They have to make that up and then any increase. And oh, by the way, they got to get out of deficit. And that's really tough. So the best thing you can do is stop the bleeding. And by stop the bleeding, what you do is you thank your donors. You turn your donor base into your club kid, and you do contact work with them, and you build the relationship. That's basically it. I mean, our donors are. I mean, if we pulled our donor base out, I mean, we go around the room. Everybody they can tell stories of what they've done, like the relationship that's been built. And so we're not losing. So we are significantly ahead in our area, but it stemmed from being behind. I mean, there's nothing worse than having to look at a staff person and go, yeah, you're in deficit. You're 25% behind. I'm getting paid in my job, no problem. But you're not. And I take it, when it happened in our area, we took it personal. So I said to Tom, at the time, Tom was our area director, Tom Rockwood. I said, hey, Tom, how much does 25% of your paycheck equal? Okay, $1,800 or $1,700 or something like that. I said, okay, great. So I called the committee, or I sent an email out to the committee and saying, hey, Tom, we're in deficit. Tom's losing $1,700. So we have to make up $1,700 this month for Tom because he's not getting it. So his bills didn't get cut by 25%. Nothing got cut in his life by 25% except his income. So we have to help him out. So not only did we probably raised $3,000 for him. So it was like a bonus month for him, which I pulled him aside later and said, look, we're going to keep you out of deficit, so don't get excited because this probably won't happen again. But man, this is the Lord coming. He actually said it was like a knight in shining armor showed up in my family's life. and saved the day. And not only the $3,000 that we got in cash, but people were also giving him, so we have Wegmans. If you've never heard of Wegmans, it's a grocery store, the greatest grocery store ever. Started in New York, you know what it is, right? Okay, he was getting Wegmans gift cards, right, galore. He ended up with over $500 in Wegmans gift cards money. And so, I mean, it turned out to be a 35, we made twice the amount he was short. But that's what a committee does. That's the commitment we make as a committee to say, you may have gone down, but we're not letting you stay. We're going to pick you up. And oh, by the way, we're going to get you out of deficit so we don't have to have this embarrassing talk again. So just part of the job of a committee, you know. That's the dirty work that we do. But that's our job. I mean, they come to our town to help our kids. The least we can do is make sure when they go down, we go down with them, or we pick them up if they go down. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. TDS, did you have a question, or are you going to just do the mic if you needed it? Okay, gotcha. Appreciate it. Sorry. All right, so that's TDS, and I'm telling you, it's a big one. It's a big one. I mean, if God is moving in your heart, this is not a lot of time. This is simply taking your donor base, and your staff person can help you, and cutting it into how many ever priorities you have, top 4, cutting that up so that each committee person, and then just the script is easy. Thank you, so-and-so. Because of you, this happened, right? That's it. I mean, however you want to fill it in. Some people are not, extroverted, like I'm off the charts extrovert. Some people are very introverted. Maybe you're a better handwritten letter, right? Something that's more personal, more you, but do it. Do it, right? Let them know how thankful you are. Because of them, this is what's happening. And I use that term everywhere I go, and I believe it. One kid meets the Lord, the landscape of heaven just changed. For eternity. I mean, if you think about that, for all eternity, because of something we did, one more person was added. I tell you, just if it doesn't hit you, think about that later tonight. All right, so that's TDS. I don't think we're going to spend actually a whole lot more, because the rest of these are just, golf chair, that's specific to you. Oh, staff leader care. All right, cool. You know what, guys, we're going to have some question and answer time here, and we're almost done. All right. Staff and leader care, organized, good delegator, creative, gift of hospitality is the qualification. Goals. Goal number 1, take care of staff and their spouses. And this is probably because I was a former staff. I'll just share this with you. The loneliest position in a Young Life area is the staff spouse. This person usually goes with their spouse to whatever land God sends them to. They don't usually, if it works the way it did when I was on staff, they don't usually know a whole lot of people. They're usually a younger staff. Maybe they have their first child, and that staff spouse is usually at home all day with a person that doesn't speak English yet. That just sucks up every ounce of energy while their spouse is out doing Young Life, and they're doing it. And we do it, and it's easy if you're a workaholic, it's easy to be out every night of the week. You could find something to do. And so when I was on staff in Boston, my wife, the staff spouse, she was awfully lonely, and she had a lot of days where she was, she would cry and she would miss home, and her parents didn't live in Boston. My parents didn't live in Boston. I was out every night, or not every night, but most nights, thinking I was really kicking butt until I realized I was losing my wife. I was losing her heart. I was losing her. She wasn't leaving me, but it was, I could tell she was becoming depressed, and it was bad. And so from then, I've always just said, whenever I do this training, keep an eye out for your staff spouse. Let them know you're there. Be a part of their life. If they have kids, man, that's even more fun, because you get to be around little babies again. I love babies, they're fun, not when they poop or anything like that, but, to play with, and, they're just so cool. But take care of your staff spouse. Don't forget them. I would say some things that help to, the question that, one of the questions earlier, giving Christmas gifts. I remember times when we would get anonymous gift cards to, when we were up in Boston, we got a gift card for $200 to Stop and Shop, which is one of their grocery stores up in New England. Things like that. There's just ways to take care of your spouse, the staff and the spouse. Watch their kids when watch their house, excuse me, when they are away on assignment, not watch their kids when they're away on assignment. Your staff goes away for a month. If they own a house, volunteer to get their mail, to watch their pet, do something, help them out a little bit. Also, babysit for them. Give them a night out. We didn't go out on a lot of dates because I remember when I first went on staff, this was 1996, I was making $24,600 a year. That was my first salary in Boston. Okay, not Evansville, in Boston. And my wife had to work too because we couldn't do it. We were renting, and our rent was $1,000 a month. So we had no extra money. And then when we moved to Charlotte, by the way, when we moved to Charlotte because Coach Gibbs, aforementioned Coach Gibbs, his son and another great friend of mine, Dave Alpern, were helping start Lake Norman Young Life. So I was like, I'd like to be the first area director for that we could hang out, play golf, and do all sorts of silly stuff. So of course we went down there, and same thing, no money. I mean, they were all rolling in it, but I made no money. Was on staff, and so. At one committee meeting that came out where, hey, how can we help you, Moose? And my wife, who happened to be at the committee meeting, said, well, we haven't really been on a date. And then one of the committee, it was Mrs. Gibbs, actually said, what? Why don't you guys go out on dates? And they didn't understand that we just can't afford to get a babysitter, go have a meal that's anything more than Waffle House, and be away. We didn't have it in the budget to do it. And that was so from then on, Mrs. Gibbs said, once a month, I will babysit your kids and give you $50 to go out to get something to eat. This was from 2000 to 2004. And so we were like, cool. So now the only thing was we had to bring our kids over to her house. Now, in hindsight, it would have been great for her to offer to come to our house because it would have been easier. We still had to pack everything up and bring it over. But the point was, it was still awesome. We made it happen. But it was because the committee was thinking, hey, here's how we can help care for. Let's give them a date night so they can stay connected, so they can continue to like each other, right? So anyway, watch their kids and then on this case, you can do it for a weekend getaway. I don't know. That only happened once. Adopt a leader. You can adopt a leader, like I said earlier. Do it once a semester, just different ideas, different plays. And et cetera, et cetera. You can organize parties, Christmas, end of year, all that sort of thing. That's what the staff leader care chair does. If this is something that you feel like you're good at doing, is helping to care for people, then this might be a role for you. Anybody can help you on that too. And then the last page is blank, all right? So the reason it's blank is because, and I'm going to send you the editable version, but inevitably there's somebody in here who has a gift that's not in here. They have a role that they can give that's not in here. Well, add it in. Add it in. Just use the example of what are your qualifications for whatever, whether you're a carpenter, whether you throw great pig pulls, or whether you throw tees. Put it in there. What are the goals that you're trying to accomplish? What are the plays to achieve those goals, and who else can help you with that? That would help us. And then this document, when you're done, like any playbook on any team, when you're done, it is not meant to throw away. It's meant to hand off to your replacement. And so I always say, when you're on committee, always be recruiting your replacement. Hopefully you'll serve with them for 5 years, but always be trying to recruit your replacement, because the business of Young Life will continue on. We lose our staff. The average lifespan for a staff person, I think, is 4 to 6 years or something like that. It's not long. Chances are somebody in this room is going to go through a staff change, and the last thing you want is to have an area fold because of a staff change. And that's why it's so important for us to have roles. That's why it's important for us to own our role and help own the area, so that, God forbid, someday when your staff person moves on, the business goes on. The relationship changes, and that's sad, but the business of the area goes on. So with that said, any questions? We can open it up for some questions, and then that's it. Any nuggets that you've learned in the second half as well that you will take home with you too? And a microphone is coming around.
Moose, Have you found inventive ways as a committee to get to your particular area churches to get them on board?
Yep,
Because I will tell you, around here, our churches are not on
on
board.
board, right, yeah. Okay, so churches how do you get churches on board? Great question. And it gets back, so you may not love the answer, but I think you'll agree with it. Again, like with TDS, most of the time when we go to our churches, it's we need. And would you come to our banquet? Would you give us money for our area? Would you, whatever it is. And we spend a lot of time asking. And so what we have found is that in our committee, we have about 4 different churches that we go to, maybe more, but I think about 4. All of them give to Young Life, but all of us serve at our church. All of us serve at our church in some way. So we just find ways to serve. We find ways to serve. And it's easier if you can serve the youth group, like just begin a relationship with the youth pastor. Just to say, hey, look, I mean, I'm so-and-so, my son or daughter goes here, he loves youth group or he loves Young Life, but I just want you to know I'd like to serve in some way. How can I help you? And it's just building the relationship. Now, again, where we don't like to hear that's more time. It just takes time. I think we all want the quick fix on the churches, but it's just not a quick fix. It just takes time to build relationships. None of us want someone to hang out with us because they want something. We want authentic relationship. And there's just no shortcut to the church other than an authentic serving relationship. Yeah.
I think what you just said is the takeaway for all of it. Like everyone wants an app for that,
Yeah.
A playbook, a bound something. And, Jesus said that our number one thing is to love him, and our second thing is because we love him, and out of that love for him, we love others. And that doesn't happen without time, intention, and relationships.
Yeah.
And that in itself isn't snap stuff.
Right.
And so in every single aspect, leadership, kids, community, committee, everything, it is legitimately giving of yourself, not for your own convenience, but so that God may be glorified. And that just takes time. I mean, you got to get over that mental hurdle.
We don't want that. We don't want that either.
We want to be on our couches,
I resonate with that. I have all people, with the time I have, I want a quick fix. When you're on your computer, remember when it took 20 seconds to get online? And now if it doesn't take 2 seconds, I can't get online. We're freaking out. We want it quick. I want it quick. My kids have a problem, I want to solve it right then, but it takes time. It's just life. And that, the quicker we get, the harder it is to deprogram from that. And so the short answer is, and it's going to take time, creativity, and think of it from their point of view. Oh, here comes Young Life. What do they need? They're going to take our kids. Nope, not coming to take your kids. Right, I'm not coming to take your, that's what they think. You're coming to take our kids. I'm not coming to take your kids. I'm not going to, if by the way, if Young Life is really doing it right, the young kids that the church probably is struggling to meet are coming to Young Life and then being plugged in because they're going with the friend that brought them to Young Life to their church eventually. That's what happened to me. So I'm like the classic example of how a church should love Young Life, because I love my church now, but I never would have gone to, ever would have gone to Young Life. You would not have caught me dead in a church had it not been for Young Life finding me and presenting Jesus in a way that I could understand and fall in love with, and then realize, the church is doing that too. They just do it a little different. Just looks a little different. Yeah, no, they don't do beer bong skits and things like that. Yeah, maybe they should.
Our area is losing the office space that we had, which is also where we held our clubs, and very affordably. And got a new sign, and now we just found out that we're going to have to be out earlier than we expected. So without becoming affiliated with the church, what are some, maybe we need to look outside the box and we're not seeing it, but that's a big hurdle for us right now.
It's an obstacle.
What are your ideas on where clubs should meet, as well as have space for office and, you know.
Do you know roughly how many kids come to club, roughly?
It can,
50?
it can be 120.
Okay.
You know, or more.
So you need probably someone
200.
either, okay. Well, okay, so let me back up. Just, I'm going to say the obvious. She just presented an obstacle, losing her club, office and club room. So first thing is that has become an obstacle. Now we know how to specifically, so prayer chair would put this at the top of her list, or his list, or whoever, to be praying for office space and a club room. So that's, I want to say that's a given, but I don't want to, it's not a given, so we should be doing that. To answer your question, and this is really going to be more for your staff person because they know the lay of the land in your area better, but if you can find a kid's house big enough to have a Young Life Club, are you local to this area? Okay, have you ever heard of the Casa Finale? Casa Finale? Okay, well, I don't know if they'd let you have club there, but there's plenty of rooms big enough, I think. The hallway is big enough for that. No, I would just say utilize your resources. I would have probably your staff person, I'm sure, is already thinking of this to find out how to solve it. But I mean, if you can find a home, great. Otherwise, I mean, this is a way to come to a church and say, listen, you know, can we borrow your youth room, or can we borrow whatever room? Our area right now actually meets in a church, oddly enough, because we can't fit in kids' houses, and the church loves it, and they don't charge us, and our office space is now in the church. So this is one of the churches where we served them, and they said, come on, you can we have an extra room. Now, we do pay rent actually for the office. We don't pay to have club there, so that might be an option. You know, staff people, feel free to speak up or see her afterwards to help her out. They're the creative ones. So, anybody else? Let me say, if you have nothing else, just one last time, I want to thank you on behalf of people like Moose Valier in 1986. I'm sure there was a group of adults sitting in a room similar to this, dreaming up ways of how they can reach their school, how they can support their staff person. Do you have a question? Okay. Microphone. We have a question, Keith.
What recommendations do you have for setting prayerful 3-year or 5-year vision goals as a collective committee, especially for a younger area? An annual strategy session with everyone, a core group of committee members getting together. Those are kind of their ideas or questions.
Yeah. That's a long one. I mean, that will take some time to answer that, but the overview is he's asking how do you have a long-term vision, say 3 to 5 years for your area, right? Essentially, that's what they want to know. How do you? Well, okay. So your staff that's a staff question or a committee question?
Committee.
That should be a committee question. Good. I hope it's not a staff question. Staff should probably already have that in the mix at some point with some sort of 3 to 5 year. Now, I will just confess, I did not do a whole lot of 3 to 5 year planning when I was on staff because I was just hanging on by a thread pretty much every year I was on staff. I tried to sound spiritual and have a 3 to 5 year plan, but the reality was I didn't know if I'd be there in 3 to 5 years. So I was just trying to figure out a way not to screw things up. So that's probably the staff person's fallback position themselves, unless they're really, really organized and type A, and they probably have that. If they don't have it, it would be a good assignment for the committee to have at a committee meeting with the staff person. Let's think through what we want this area to look like over the next 3 or 5 years. I mean, there's really nothing more fancy than that, to be honest with you. And like, what schools do we want to be in? Do we want to add any ministries? Is there any groundswell for Capernaum Young Life or Young Lives or that sort of thing? So.
There was one more. Somebody said that they have joined in and immediately inherited the role of being the golf chair. They're just wanting to know, how did they get started and
yeah,
what did they do?
Start drinking heavily. No. No. You know what? Consider this a gift. Do they have this at home? Do they have this online? Everybody does? Okay, there's a golf subcommittee page on here. This is how we run ours. You know, so I would say look at the golf subcommittee, and then on the back of it is my phone number. Call me. That's easier to answer it that way than try to go over all of it. But start with the playbook, and then if that doesn't help you, call me. Okay? And feel free to ask any more questions. I just wanted to finish what I was saying and when I was thanking you guys for what you're doing, for how you're here and taking your gifts. And you know, I'm sure to some degree you're feeling like I'm hanging on by a thread, and I wish I was doing more. And hopefully from today you will have discovered, hey, here are some nuggets that I can use to help make it more efficient, the time that I give and with the passion that I have for this ministry. I'll speak on behalf, because I was a former staff person, I'll speak on behalf for the staff and thanking you too in advance for everything that you have given and will give. And I just encourage you to continue to fight for your staff person, to stay in their lives, to encourage them, to help them to not feel like they're doing it by themselves. And they will thank you for it and reward you for it for sure, in the way they smile and the way they love kids and the way they build their team, because you're helping them. So what you're doing is making a humongous eternal difference. And I'll say it again, you're helping to reshape the landscape of heaven. And just think about that at some point, what that really means, that your time and your money and your talent and whatever you give is truly helping reshape heaven. And so I want to say thank you for that from a high school junior who doesn't know the Lord yet, somewhere in one of your high schools, or some girl who's struggling with something who has yet to come in contact with that leader at the school. Keep praying for them, keep doing what you're doing, and let's see what God will do. Okay? Can I close in prayer, or are you? Okay, let me close this. Heavenly Father, thank you. Lord, it's true. We are lost without you, and we are hanging on by a thread in our walk with you, in the way we live out our relationship with you, Lord. If everybody really knew the real me, they would not have invited me. And Lord, if I knew everybody in this room, I wouldn't want them in the room. And so, Lord, we just thank you that you take our fallenness, that you take our fallen self or whatever, that you shine us up, Lord. You redeem what was once ugly and lost, and you make it beautiful, and you use it in such a way to allow your Holy Spirit to work through us so that kids' lives can be changed forever, mine among them. And so thank you, Lord, for that. That's incredibly encouraging. Until we go to heaven, Lord, though, we ask that you continue to encourage us, Lord, that you continue to give us the strength that it takes and the focus that it takes to not be sidetracked like sheep, Lord, to stay focused on the task at hand, which is to walk with you, Lord, to love you first, to love others, and Lord, to help benefit whatever ministry we're involved in, our family, Young Life, church, whatever it would be, Lord. Help us to stand strong. And for the staff, Lord, I pray for them personally. I pray for them spiritually, Lord, for their integrity, Lord, just for their encouragement, their fearlessness, Lord. Pray that they bounce back fast when they're rejected. And Lord, I pray you give them the kids that they're praying for. I pray that you fill their camp trips so kids can hear the gospel in such a clear way. Pray that daily kids will be added to our numbers daily, those who are being saved, Lord. And so we'll just thank you now in advance for everything that you'll do this year and this summer. And all of the kids' lives will be touched in the land that you've given each of us in our Young Life area. And so, Lord, we don't pray any of this in your name or thou name or the name or whatever name. Lord, we pray in the name above every name, the name of Jesus Christ. In his name, Jesus. Amen. Amen. All right. That's all for me.
Can you please give Moose another hand? We really appreciate the nuggets that you have brought to us today. Hey, everyone out there that is viewing, we have emailed both of these documents to your area directors. So if you did not get them today in the training session, please check it out with them, and they should be able to get you a copy of both of these that you can continue on with your committee ministry. And lastly, I just want to say thank you for all of you folks that came today and took a couple hours out of your Saturday, which I know are precious, and all of you that are viewing. This means a lot to our dream team for committees. I promise that we will continue to dream and try to step outside the box as your dream team committee and see what comes next. So with that, I just say thank you again, and God bless you all, and we'll try to reach the next one. Thanks.